Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Healed Podcast with Ruth and I. Today's episode, we are looking into the 764 sex cult. Some call it a satanic cult. It is a network, an online network that targets children. So this is going to be quite an intense one. You guys are gonna have to buckle up, get comfortable. Trigger warning. We are going to be talking about CSAM, child sexual assault, animal cruelty, uh, so just sadism, violence. So take your mental health into account and perhaps watch it before you watch with a child in the room, whatever you decide to do. But I think that disclaimer is important to share. Very, very important, especially considering the conversation, the topics that we do discuss here, spreading awareness around keeping our children safe. So, yeah, I think that Ruth, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say, and then just let me know when we can begin so we can jump right into it.
Now, I'd just like to say a warm welcome back, guys. Good to have you back. And yes, just keep in mind, like Ila said, today the topic is extremely sensitive. So please keep that in mind. I'm super excited to discuss this because this group particularly it's got a worldwide impact. Even here in New Zealand, there's been a couple of case studies. I know Australia, Canada has also been featured, the States, but we're going to be getting into all of that. Over to you, Ila.
So there's a lot of content, there's a lot of information online, and I'm always going to encourage you guys to do your own research. Look into this more, empower yourself and understand what is happening. We have entire universes online now, and it's such a big part of our children's lives. So we need to be as well informed as we possibly can. I'm going to start to just paint a picture. Can you imagine that you have your little 11, 12-year-old girl playing a game online, Roblox? They're on Roblox and they've chosen a game and it looks perfectly innocent to you. And so you leave them to do that for hours on end. They're playing, you expect them to be safe because it's a children's game. And whilst they're playing, they're getting really comfortable on this online game platform. They meet people, they come across someone that befriends them, seems to be like-minded, takes the time to get to know them, their interests, and really connect to them mentally and psychologically in every and any way possible. Gives that your 12-year-old girl the impression that they have similar interests. She's understood, she's seen. She builds a connection, a deep connection with this person, and all the while she's being groomed and you do not know about it. This individual tells her that they're the same age or around the same age. Okay, and then after some time of building an emotional connection, encourages your 12-year-old to then join them on a chat group called that is on Discord, right? Meeting other like-minded people, really showing her off and making her feel quite accepted and making her feel confident. And all the while, she is communicating with a grown man who leads her to believe that this is her boyfriend. He loves her and he adores her and she's the most important thing. He spends hours online playing with her and his whole world revolves around it. Sounds like every teenager's dream. And then he takes it a step further and he starts asking her to make him feel special by sending her explicit pictures. And this under the guise that this forms more intimacy. And the moment that she does that, he changes. He begins to blackmail her and tell her that if she doesn't do whatever he says, she's going to share her private picture. He's going to share her private pictures with everyone. All of this while you think that your child is just safe in the house, in their bedroom, playing a game. Well, this is the story of many, many young children since 2021. This network the reason why it's called a network is because it's sort of like an octopus with many, many tentacles. And I had to sit and think about where do we begin to tell the story so that we can paint a picture of exactly what this looks like. I'm going to start with someone known as Kuro. Okay. Kuro is described as an untraceable predator manipulating vulnerable girls across many platforms. Keep in mind that these are not their names, their government names, their names given to them at birth. They have pseudonames, nicknames, and they're known across these platforms by these names. All right, so based on the post, it's obvious that, okay, so I'm going to ask Ruth to put an extract into the video here so that you guys can read this yourselves. And then I want you to look at that extract and just look at some of the posts that this Kuro guy posts. Based on this post, it's obvious that he operates mainly on Discord but prowls on other sites such as Free Teen Chat. So these are different chat rooms that they create. Please keep in mind that I'm not familiar with this world, so I've really had to look into these different things. There's so many different chat groups for teenagers only, right? But it's not moderated, and there are so many loopholes because you don't need to verify that you are a teenager. You don't need an adult to verify it. You can simply use an email address just to enter. So you guys know we can create 1,000 different email addresses and then just operate under the guise of being whoever we want to assume, right? Parents think that these spaces are safe when really they are easy havens of debauchery. Adults use them to find children to groom into creating CSAM material, which is also known as child sexual abuse material. Okay, so I'll just be referring to it as that from here on. These sites are really easy to get into, and immediately kids find links promoting access to Discord, which is a chat room where lots of different people can, and you just need to create a profile name. There is no verification there either. You create a profile name and nobody knows anything about you except that that's your profile name. You can chat to multiple people and then you can exchange photos and videos, which in my mind is crazy, because I thought that even in these teen chat groups, they're allowed to exchange photos and videos. And I thought, why would that be necessary? Why would that even be allowed? Why would you need to send photos and videos to strange people? But if it is moderated, if a parent has their hand on it and they moderate that, okay, that you're not going to use that function, they just encourage your child to go to Discord and say, hey, I want to introduce you to this community, or let's chat over there. And I mean, as adults, we easily do that. We easily jump between applications to communicate and to get to know people. It's not hard to imagine that our children would also, and even more so, find it to be a comfortable way to get to know different people. On this, so how they do it is they advertise links in these teen chat groups. It's actual advertisements where it's like 15-year-old boy looking for blah, 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 blah. And young girls who want to be liked and are vulnerable to that kind of attention. Maybe they want a boyfriend. Maybe at school they're being bullied and no one's being nice to them and they're not the popular girl. They click onto these links, think they're talking to someone their own age. And then in the meantime, this is a predator that's the way that they get them onto Discord very often. So we know that when we click onto certain websites, ads pop up. We click away from them. But in young, impressionable kids, they're a lot more gullible, and especially if they have been playing this game, playing a particular game with someone whom they think they know for a long period of time. My son was saying to me that you can even write messages on Minecraft. You can write messages on your blocks, like your characters and the buildings that you've built. So you can say, will you be my girlfriend, or whatever else, in the game. So there's a lot of variables to consider and to think about. These teen application or websites can sometimes allow children as young as 5 to join. And kids can chat in groups. And as I said, send photos and videos. Now think about that, as young as 5. All you need to do to enter is an email. As I've said, there's no verification. There are no checks and balances. Kuro's process, this particular guy's process, is to move the conversation to Discord or Telegram and spend months building a relationship with these kids, using fake photos of other teenage boys, which is easy to find online now because our kids have pictures everywhere, and hiding his identity, making these children believe that he's in love. Based on all accounts, this has been successful for Kuro and his ideal target being 10 to 15-year-old girls. More often than not, they have some sort of mental challenges and or are on the spectrum, meaning that they're a little slower to pick up on Kuro's red flags, with social challenges and the desire to be accepted. After days, weeks, months of convincing these kids that they are in love, he starts asking them to send photos and videos. But he does not stop there. Kuro will use these photographs for his own gratification. Kuro will then double down and affirm these girls to make them feel really good about themselves. And as if what they're doing is right, like they've done the right thing. He loves me more. He's even sweeter than he's ever been. Okay, so then they feel really comfortable with what they're doing. They believe him to be someone who is their own age, and they're developing a beautiful relationship. They're accepted, they're appreciated in a way that maybe they haven't been before. Then Kuro begins to ask for progressively worse material to satisfy his ever-increasing appetite. It appears to me with all these cases, these predators are desensitized and they need more and more. And depending on what their motivation is, it's sort of like an addiction. After an extensive period of time gaining their trust and harvesting material, Kuro will flip the script. Now he's got a lot of material from them, and he'll take these images and videos that he's collected and use them to blackmail these girls. This makes it apparent that Kuro is not just a pedophile, but also has other motives, because he enjoys seeing them suffer, torture, and blood. Kuro then threatens these children by telling them that if they do not do whatever he says, everyone that they know will receive a file of these images. So that's at school, their friends, their parents, their family. He makes sadistic requests, commanding that they start cutting themselves and that they harvest their blood and write essays in his name. There are pictures of this online. All right. Supplicating to sort of declaring, his how great he is and their worship of him. So with Kuro, it seems to be, when you look at the content, that there is, yes, a sadistic factor to it, but that there's also a sort of a fascination with occult and satanic worship. All right. So these essays that they are written can vary from 1 pages with their blood splattered on the page and hearts written in it, to really long essays which require a lot of blood. in there, they must call him daddy, master, pimp, etc. And they must put his name there, most of which can't be mentioned on YouTube. Most of the stuff that he asked them to put in these essays can't be mentioned on YouTube. So there's so much content out there, and it's not even the tip of the iceberg. In other cases, Kuro would have these girls write his name on their wall, really, really big in blood. Just think of how much blood that is. There's a video that we're going to put in here for you to listen to this voice note that he sends this girl, to give you an idea of what these girls, the kind of how cold and psychotic it really sounds. Kuro is known to have a typical brand of inverted crosses engraved into the flesh of the girls. And that's an upside down cross. And this is why some people feel that it is related to satanic worship. I think that when people are trying to be really impressionable and trying to psychologically manipulate other people, they want to be as diversive as possible. They want to be as shocking as possible. They want to want to feel powerful. They want to feel scary, so they'll associate themselves with really scary things. In some cases, it appears that they actually feel that they're doing this in worship of Satan. So in addition to the crosses, Kuro would require that these girls write runes and satanic symbolism, pledging their allegiance to the Prince of Darkness. Now, runes and satanic symbolism, they don't really match if you know anything about these things, but it's very easy for people for them to make up their own stuff, whatever religion their families might oppose might be the reason why they're drawn to those things, and they just accumulate different things and attach their own meanings to it. But I can see how to many people it might appear as though they are getting these girls to sell their souls to the devil. All right. So I'll be curious to see or to hear from our audience what their thoughts are. Kuro also gets these girls to carve the logo HN, which is an abbreviation for Harm Nation, and we'll hear more about that later on in the as we go through the information. So he will then force them to carve HN into their bodies and onto their walls. Harm Nation is an organization of people like Kuro who are dedicated to acceleracism, Satanism, self-harm, CSA, and CSAM creation. All right. Harm Nation has been active for several years, beginning in 2021. I want us to take a moment to think about this. 2021 is not that long ago. And the amount of victims and the impact across the globe, as you've said, it's not just in one country, it's known across the globe. It's a system with numerous tentacles, as I've said, all over the internet. But these are also leadership channels, and there's administration at play as well. So there are leaderships, and then there are the subgroups and so forth. So it's almost like a pyramid in a sense. Leaders control those beneath them and hoard all of their images as well. They gather them, all of them. And it makes you wonder, why are these images such a hot commodity? It makes one think about the larger picture here, where child trafficking and all of this, there are these rings that I can't help but believe have some sort of influence on this movement, because clearly the images are never enough. They keep needing to accumulate more and more, and they work on them. They work really hard to take time to groom, to find different people. You've got to be online. It's like a job. It's like a
Yeah.
job.
And especially,
Um,
especially if they are males, either like you're saying now, I'm just from what I've heard so far, the psychological control is absolutely shocking. How they use these who went through the different stages. So they're taking time. If you're talking about a period of months to groom these minors, and what I'm really getting here is that they're promoting misanthropy, which is like a dislike, you can say, I would say, of humankind. So children that do feel isolated, that do feel like they don't belong, they're given special access because you mentioned they get to be part of a particular group. So we can see how manipulative these groups are. It is absolutely shocking. Wow.
there is a ranking system, Ruth, whereby the amount of images that you collect and the extremity of them, how gruesome and how vile they are, how much power you're able to assert over these girls,
Wow.
is glorified, and you're almost promoted. You gain
Mm, mm.
notoriety, you're promoted within the group, and it's really got this feeling of a cult.
So I'm really
The
interested to know, sorry, if there are different layers. Is there someone managing behind the scenes? Like, okay, you've gotten so many images, so now you get bumped up. And is there someone managing this? Because you spoke about the tentacles. Is there sort of a head to all of this?
Yes. So Kuro sort of as his division and the way he does things, right? And then there are others who will follow that same sort of. So obviously, I get into that a little bit later, but just to answer your question, um, they actually look for outcasts on the internet. So
Mm,
it's like how
mm,
you and I
mm,
would have a conversation. I'll tell you a little bit about what I believe and how I see the world. And if your response is positive, you might then get excited because someone sees the world the way you, and you give me a little bit of how you see the world. And then we just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then we establish that we're like-minded, we're the same people. Then I say, join this group.
mm,
And
mm.
then everybody treats you like, in a way that you want to be treated, and it's really cult-like behavior. And before you
Yeah.
know it, you're doing things that you might not really want to do, um, but you might be in a situation where you're being blackmailed because they've
Mm,
got
mm.
content on you, or where you seek power and notoriety, maybe because um, you've been bullied, or you're an outcast, or whatever the case may be. Perhaps you're just a pedophile, right? They meet one another online and then they go into these groups. But I'll draw some kind of parallel as we move through it for you to get a better idea. So the members of Harm Nation are global, all right? They operate in every country that you can think of. And by benefiting with Kuro specifically, by benefiting off the wealth of his family. He was born into a wealthy family. He's not an impoverished boy. Um, Born into a wealthy family, and he travels quite frequently. He's been able to visit Europe on a regular basis, which lands him quite nicely within his what is believed to be his preferred um, target, and this is German girls.
Mm, mm,
European girls, German girls. Okay. So that is just what he's known. It's just known that most of his target group has been German girls with mental challenges, which is quite disgusting if you think about
mm,
it, whom he's groomed and would sometimes meet in person. And this is the scary thing, is some of them would meet, they're not just behind the computer. They would meet these girls in person, which means they must be of a particular age to be able to get around, right? They're not
yes.
children, they're adults. Um, so that is Kuro, all right? And it's quite nasty when you think of it, and when you think of the voice note and the types of messages that he would send and how he would groom these girls and treat them and then blackmail them and force them to do these gory things and then go and meet with them, maybe make them feel really, really special, So it's just unimaginable.
Eva, you fucking bitch. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. Like, hate me or love me, I don't really care. Trust me, I will leak you so bad that you will regret it every day for the rest of your life. I mean, all I asked you was send me some notes, and that is it. But no, you wouldn't listen to me. So this is all your fault. And I know that you won't really feel any fear or anything. Like, you're probably thinking that, what can I even do? I don't know how to. But no, things don't work like that. And you should be very much aware that what kind of person I am. And if you're not, then don't worry, because in like 2 or 3 weeks or even a month, you will definitely see that version of me. And just trust me, you are getting so. And yeah, my voice might be like very much. I don't know. I have an accent, and my voice is not that deep. But do you know why I sent it to you? Because I don't give a fuck about you anymore. I don't care what you think about me, and that is because I'm literally on the last stage of trying to be friends with you, and after that, you are just done. You are nobody to me. I wouldn't even hesitate to kill you. So yeah,
Once they've got influence, the kind of reach and the kind of impact they can have on the lives of these children. Next, I want to talk a little bit about a guy named Syn, S-Y-N, which is a nickname. There is an Instagram account that I believe it's been removed now, but this account it's like a brag account. So it's not only on Discord and these places. I mean, Instagram. He had these images of animals being tortured and deceased bodies decomposing and all the satanic ritual imagery. All right. It came across as an image of I came across an image of a girl who Eve must have forced to take a picture. She's got a tongue hanging over the page and she's written his name, S-Y-N, and Flar, F-L-A-R, abused children. That's what she had to put on the paper. And her tongue's bleeding and the blood is dripping down the paper and she had to take a picture. These were the kinds, so images like that were put on Instagram. Harm Nation members will tell little girls to write things like that as a way of asserting dominance and showing they're above the law. So they definitely want this notoriety. They want their logos out there, their names out there. His content, Syn, this guy's content, seemed to be a flex. And the images contained, like I said, decomposed material, animal torture, girls bleeding, and stuff like that. And it seems to me that he uses his Instagram as a promotional page because he sells tools such as satanic ritualistic curses. So people would pay him they want someone unalived, for example. They want someone to lose their job, or they want relationships to break up.
Just
And
the
he would
level
have
of
of him
depravity.
doing
Oh my
this.
goodness.
Sorry?
The level of depravity is just astounding. As you're going through this, I mean, using Instagram, which is normally considered to be a safe platform, and the way these individuals weaponize loneliness is absolutely shocking. If anything, I feel like going to grab my own child's phone now and making sure I go through all the messages. And I hope that one thing that parents take away from this is to be more vigilant around the content that our children are definitely looking at. Because what looks like a direct message could potentially be a coercive trap. And what looks like an innocent message, there could be something more behind it. And platforms are not Instagram. I can't believe that's one of the platforms that are considered to be safe. But it just shows how deep this organization has its tentacles into different places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And think of the people who would then contact this person who has this Instagram account, obviously clearly showing the power that he yields over these people, selling curses, satanic curses. And he takes videos of these things where he's burning different stuff and then he's pouring I don't know what over it, and these are curses that he's selling. So like I said, if you want someone's relationship to fail, you want them to lose their job, or you want them to be injured or even death, definitely an environment for people who feel powerless and who cannot accept life as a process. You want that relationship, or you want that person, or you think you're going to be happy if you have things a certain way. Now, I wanted to share a little bit about what Roadblocks is for people who don't know it. It is a website where they have a whole lot of different games for children. So it's an ideal platform for these predators because there are tens of thousands, perhaps even more, games within it, right? And moderation becomes very sparse as the games become more obscure. 70.2 million active players are active daily. Many of these are adults. And just think of how many of them are these Harm Nation members chatting and pretending to be children. Some might feel, well, I'm not letting my kids play any games. What we want to be cautious about here is the fact that as we go through the story, we'd also begin to see that sometimes being too extreme further creates isolation for a child. Isolation is to me, is the big issue that we need to be aware of. How do they become so vulnerable to these spaces? They must be isolated to one extent or another. And so looking at healthy relationship dynamics all around, but especially with themselves, is going to be important. Moderation is the key. Yeah. Being involved, checking out who you're playing with. Yeah, it's my friend so-and-so. How do you know them? What do you know about them? And then having a relationship where your child can say to you, oh, I've met this person, I quite like him, and they don't have to be afraid that you're saying that. Because the reason why why children are such easy targets is because sometimes even in their own households, and this is not intentional, they are really isolated, feel very misunderstood. Harm Nation is one of 22 confirmed subgroups of a parent organization. All of these subgroups are linked to 764. 764 is not a 20, 40-year-old network. It started in 2021. 764 is the head of this giant octopus, this giant beast with 22 confirmed tentacles. There are very possibly more. And they hunt children to infect, use, and destroy them. 764 was founded by a boy named Bradley Caden. And Bradley Caden, the good news is that he's since been arrested and he's been sentenced to 80 years in prison, and he's been registered as a cult leader at the age of, he was 15 when he was arrested. The court case went to court when he was 18, so he was convicted at 18. But don't think that ends this. It has only become more popular, the organization. Now I want to, and we're going to go into who Bradley Cadenhead is a little bit later, maybe in the next episode, because I felt it was very important for us to paint a picture of who this boy is, how he became this powerful cult leader. You asked me earlier, it's like, who are the leaders? I believe personally, Caden Head is a sub leader, but then there are other organizations or other individuals that fuel the network. They may not run the network, but they're definitely feeding off of it in one way or another. Now I want to jump to Rohan R. Rohan R is a 23-year-old business student who lived in France. And he's an Indian national, so he's born in India. And Bradley was introduced to him. The reason why he's important to be mentioned in this podcast is because Bradley was introduced to Rohan on Minecraft after dropping out of school in 2021. And this is where Bradley really, really started this network. So there were other people doing this before. This is just the one that's now sort of blown up. Rohan was the founder of an online organization called CBLT and was a predecessor to 764. CBLT was a group that generated relationships with children while pretending to be children, and then encouraged these children to send CSAM material via Telegram or Discord. So you see they've got the same MO, and then used it to blackmail the children for money or to sell the content for a larger sum. In Rohan's own words, his goal in all of this was to build a reserve of slaves. So it's easy to see where and from whom Bradley learned his craft. However, Bradley's vision went beyond money. He wanted notoriety, he wanted CSAM materials, sadism, humiliation, and destruction. There are 2 confirmed cases of animal mutilation, 1 hamster and 1 cat associated. That's only what's been confirmed. All right. And remember, there are 22 tentacles. They all have different members. Just imagine each one of, if 22 had 20 members, and each of them had 3 victims. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of children.
So surprising. Yeah. Sorry, we have to jump in there. Not even, yes, they target individuals, but their families are also targeted by what you're saying here, and not even the animals are safe from cruelty like these groups, which has been known to use animal abuse as part of their rituals. That is what I'm getting here. And this deliberate harm reflects the complete, for me, it seems like detachment from empathy. This is the modus operandi, just a warning of how dark and destructive these networks can be.
As of May 2025, there are over 250 open investigations tied to 76. And they span across they span across every one of the 55 FBI field offices across the USA. That's not to mention what is happening in the rest of the world and how many cases might be linked to this where the children haven't said anything.
So those 250 cases are, just to clarify, those 250 cases are just for the United States of America.
Yes, that's just there. That's a hell of a lot of victims that have come forward, whether it's been extreme enough for them to come forward. What about those? Yeah, just those who didn't want to tell their story. What about those who never got to tell their story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because like you say, it's not including the global investigations that occur simultaneously, that are occurring currently simultaneously, just alongside that. Nothing has been able to successfully cut off the head of 764 cult. And I just want to go through a couple of known crimes associated with Rohan, and obviously Brandon, and more people, because they're all sort of interconnected. And I'll mention a few later when we go into more detail with regards to Brandon. This is by no means a true reflection of the amount of victims there are, but it does certainly paint a picture, and I want us to be very aware of how this looks so that we can recognize it, particularly when it's happening to somebody close to us. So, and this is just a few off of the web. There's a lot that is not even on the website because it was too extreme. You know, there's only certain things you can post in certain places. In 2021, a 22-year-old member of CVLT, Caleb Christopher Merritt. Now, remember, CVLT was founded by Rohan, the 23-year-old business student that lived in France. He kidnapped a 12-year-old girl in Virginia. His specific splinter group was to leverage incest, like images regarding incest, and to encourage incest. It's wild to think about this because as I'm talking about, obviously when I was doing the research, you're so focused on researching, but just imagine how devastating this is to be forced to do these kinds of things. And it's making me think of some of the case studies where youngsters, teenagers are doing things to their younger siblings, and you might not even know that it's part of this kind of organization. So incest, animal torture, like we've mentioned, and self-harm, that was the specific focus. Okay. This guy, he traveled across many states to find his victim after grooming her, of course, getting to know her, grooming her, and getting her to send images and so forth. I don't know if she gave him her address, but it's appeared to me in another case that it's quite easy for them to find your information online, especially with how kids, I suppose sometimes we even post where we live or locations and stuff like that. But after meeting his victim on Instagram, he began to abuse her online. Before he decided to travel from Spring County, not country, County, Texas to Bassett, Georgia to find her in person. So apparently this is quite a distance. It's across quite a few states. And according to the court documents, Merritt camped outside of her house, sort of behind the victim's home, for several days, telling her to come out to meet him, working on her in that way. And then sort of he coerced her into meeting up with him in his tent. And he then proceeded to SA this little girl, take pictures of her nude. And fortunately, he was caught and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. But it leads me to, so he did all of this online, and all of them, it seems to be the same thing. They escalate, it keeps escalating, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And, but the question comes in, this is a massive organization, and this kind of syndicate costs money. These people travel. In the case of Kuro, whose parents are wealthy, okay, they then let him travel. But still, when you're going to stay somewhere, when you're doing all of these things, never mind the weaponry that comes into conversation, because there's a lot of that. It costs. Where is it coming from? There are certainly people benefiting from this content, and I cannot help but to think these youngsters who are not working, who can drive for days and days, camp outside of a house, they're really determined, only to end up going to jail.
The rest of their lives.
Who is funding this? Who are the ones truly benefiting from this nightmare? So that was one. And then the second case was November 2021, an American man who was stranded in Kazakhstan. He died by self-mutilation in front of an audience in a live video call on Discord, he had been encouraged, or shall I say, blackmailed, to broadcast him self-harming online, and he was encouraged by a 15-year-old Eastern European girl who he met online, known to be linked to 764. So do you see how it's a sort of pyramid scheme? So
some of these are minors exploiting other minors, and then there are the
yes,
adults as well. So there's many different layers. That's what I'm picking up here. And they are using social media as a weapon. You know, they get access through the social media, and then the targeting. So okay, this one and that one and that one. People are invited into the spaces, like you said, Discord. It's a group. And so people, especially vulnerable people, feel, oh, we've got access now. So you can see the grooming pattern throughout. It is just astonishing as you're going through this. And then they groom through trust. So there's a relationship that evolves over time. And these children, they see these abusers as their peers, people that they can trust. There's that whole grooming period. And like you said, this person camped outside of our house for several days. So he must have been watching her, having conversations.
I think of the torture, how tortured she must have felt, and how terrified she must have been. And eventually thinking, I'm going to have to go out and meet him so that he doesn't tell my parents don't find out. Or imagine what it must have been like for this little girl, because she was little. Now, in this case, with this man who is stranded in Kazakhstan, he was obviously talking to an underage girl. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know. This girl could have been groomed in the very same way into the network. And I'm saying pyramid scheme for lack of a better, because I'm just saying, just see how you get lured in. There are layers to this thing. And then she might have been groomed in the same way, bullied in the same way. Maybe she wanted to be popular, or she wanted to be liked. And so to be liked and to gain notoriety, and maybe to no longer be the victim and to be one of the cool members, she started chatting to people, someone older, maybe exchange pictures, and then said to him, well, I'm 15, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to expose you, pervert. Right? Maybe he was. I'm not saying that, but then he has to go online in this live call where there are all these people on the server who can watch him do these sadistic things to himself, and he dies.
Wow.
He might have decided, well, everyone's seeing me, they're probably going to share this everywhere, my life is over anyway. Then it's frightening. And then the next case is in 2023, a 17-year-old member, Nino Luciano, known as Tubbs, live streamed himself attacking an 82-year-old man in March 2022. And 2 weeks later, he live streamed himself fatally stabbing a 74-year-old woman whom he believed to be Roma on the 764 Discord server. So he believed this elderly woman, this old woman, to be a particular person on the server. And he live streamed and stabbed this woman fatally, allegedly so that he could prove himself as a member of the maniac's murder cult. He was sentenced to only 14 years in prison. Then, next case in March 2023, the founder of the 764 network, known as Bradley Cadenhead, which I've already mentioned, pleaded guilty, as I said, to 9 counts of possession of child pornography, and the judge gave him 80 years in prison. But what I want to mention here is that there was a lot more. Nonetheless, he was referred to a cult leader. He's labeled a cult leader. And then in January 2024, 47-year-old Richard Anthony Rayner Desmore of Cleaver, Michigan, was indicted in federal child pornography charges. So this is a 47-year-old man was part of the group too. Densmore was known as Rabbit in the organization. He ran a splinter group named Sewer. So that was another group. So you see all the different names where, well, Harm Nation is the nation. Then we have CBLT. Then we have Murder Cult Maniacs. Then we have Sewer, and there are others that I will mention later. And he was later sentenced to 30 years in prison after pleading guilty. The Justice Department stated that the group sought to do unspeakable harm to children to advance their goals of destroying civilized society, lamenting civil unrest, and ultimately collapsing government institutions. The US government also classified the organization as a transnational threat. In 2024, February of 2024, a 14-year-old boy from Canada was linked to the network and arrested on charges of distributing child pornography, non-consensual distribution of sensitive images, and possession of explosives. So now we're getting into another aspect of this, where these members are in possession of dangerous material, firearms, explosives. Where are they getting it from?
A 14-year-old.
He was a
I just
14-year-old.
clarify? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
He's a 14-year-old boy. Now, what I want us to, and this is why I want to tell Bradley's story, because everybody would wonder, well, how does this begin? Where does this begin? There are adults, obviously, that are part of the group. There is a process of desensitization that takes place. Just think about it. For you to get to the age of 14, and you would think, what are you going to be like when you're 19, 20? There is a process of desensitization and normalization that takes place, which is the process of every grooming. And the scary thing is that many of these attackers, predators, were also victims in one word. And it's hard to tell. I suppose you have to go into each and every individual story to recognize and to know that. Okay, so the next one is, this is case number 7 for now. March 2024, Kyle Williams Spitz, who is known as Criminal in the network, on the network, was indicted on federal child pornography charges. Spitz garnered notoriety in 2023 for a video of his stepfather shooting him in the ear during an altercation. There's an actual video online. So his stepfather shoots at him. The mother standing next to the man with the gun faced and shoots him in the ear, and he then posts that and he gains notoriety for that. In December 2024, he pleads guilty to 4 of the 8 crimes he was charged with. He faces 30 years in prison and lifetime supervised release. So I'm not sure how that works. But in this case, there's sort of a picture of him being from a very dysfunctional home and then maybe being tired of being bullied and getting really angry, which is, it's a story of so many kids from the Cape Flats where we come from, where they're these tough guys and all they really need is a safe home and love and to feel safe. I definitely, I want us to be aware that as much as we've got to look out for our girls, we've got to look out for our boys as well. And just so that we paint a full picture of the different scenarios and circumstances that these individuals may come from. October 2024, a 14-year-old boy nicknamed Slain in the network, also a member of 764, was arrested after live streaming 8 attacks and 3 stabbings in Hässelby, Sweden. He just went on a rampage. 2025, the Antioch High School shooter, Solomon Henderson, made reference to 764 private shooting at the school. So some of these school shootings are very likely linked to the network. In this case, this boy, 14-year-old boy, goes on a rampage. You ask yourself, is that just a psychopathic predator that was always like that and decided, hey, this is a great group for me to live stream myself on and go and spend the rest of my life in prison or many years in prison? Or is it more likely that this was another blackmailing situation? And then when you are part of an organization like this where you are being propped for how bad you can be, how extreme you can be, if you've been bullied and if you've been, with the impact and the conditioning online, and when people are sort of worshipped for being cruel and violent, you can definitely begin to see how they can be psychologically groomed to and then of course blackmailed. For you and I, for me, it seems more likely that that was the case. Now we have to take into account the growing demand. Every time the content's got to get worse and more extreme. And I've mentioned it a couple of times. When we talk about Caden Head, Bradley, I keep calling him Braden because his surname is Caden Head. And you know me with names. Bradley, we go through his story, you'll also get a picture of the amount of ammunition. When you do some of your personal research, you will also get a picture of the amount of ammunition that they find with these kids. Many of them travel distances to go and meet with these children and create this gory content. Where are they getting the money from? This is a massive network, organization, cult, whatever you want to call it. They're accumulating all of this content. It's going to the leaders, which in this case was Bradley and some of his subheads. It's going elsewhere. It's being paid for. This network since 2021, and think about it, it's a short period of time, has grown so extensively. Post Caden being arrested, it's grown even more. It's definitely lucrative in one way or another. It's sort of like drugs. There must be a great demand for it, for people to be willing to put their lives at risk. They're not afraid. They're posting these things, the live streaming and everything. And they're possessing this content on, their computers, on drives. So bombs, firearm travel, who is funding it? And how does this feed into our economy? It gives me Epstein Island vibes, child trafficking vibes, where this has become another environment where these wealthy individuals or these groups of people are willing to pay lots of money for this kind of content. They're exploiting these young children. The oldest person that so far we've heard about was a 47-year-old man, but a lot of them are kids. So there's a lot to think about here, Ruth. I don't know at this stage if there's anything you want to add to this.
I just wanted to say thank you, Eva, for all the research. I'm absolutely blown away by what I've heard here. I've watched a couple of videos, but I had no idea that this goes far beyond just normal criminality, if you think about it. It represents a calculated plan and a deliberate campaign of dehumanization. Every ending of all the case studies that you've read, even some people have lost their lives. So this network, they thrive on inflicting psychological and physical suffering. So it's a two-edged sword. And it's a chilling reflection of how far human cruelty can evolve when it hides behind anonymity, because a lot of the names that you used were like Hero. It's just a name. And how this also hides behind technology. So thank you for all these stories. We need to keep our children safe online. And I liked what you said about having those judgment-free conversations with our children, reminding them a true friend will never ask you to do anything that is unsafe or even share pictures that you don't feel comfortable with. And these are the conversations we can start having with our children. When they can come to you without fear of punishment and say, I've met someone online and they asked me to do something, we can have that. We use it as an opportunity to educate our children. True friends will not place you in danger. They will not ask you for something that makes you feel uncomfortable. So,
Sorry, I just want to add, because I think it's important to note, I didn't touch on it in this episode. We will go into it a little bit when we delve into who the founder is, who Brandon Cadenet is, his childhood, his story, how some of his victims. But there are many cases where these predators bully these children, these girls, so relentlessly, tell them to kill themselves. Fortunately, the cases that we know of, they didn't listen, but then they are really bullied even more because they're not doing what they say. How many listened? They actually would tell them to unalive themselves. The other thing that I want to just highlight for our consideration is the things that we've heard about in this podcast. Look for signs with your kids: cutting, carving things into their skin. When they go quiet, when their entire world seems to revolve around the internet, when they suddenly feel depressed, when animals mysteriously go missing, these are just things to think about, to consider. And like I said, moderating screen time. Put those checks and balances in place for their security and their safety. Don't allow the internet to raise your children. Create a safe space for them, and that's what we always talk about here at this channel. Have conversations with them, let them know that they're safe with you, so that when they are being blackmailed because they've had a little lapse in judgment, or somebody lied to them and told them they're safe with them, and now they're blackmailing them, they can come and tell you before things go so far that they are being told to shoot up their school or unalive themselves or harm a pet or harm you. So, yeah. Oh, one more thing, Ruth, just before we go. There is a mini documentary that I would like to encourage everybody to go and have a look at. There are many parents have been speaking out, kids who feel that they're comfortable, have been telling their story. This mini documentary is quite interesting. It's on a YouTube channel called Fifth Estate, and the young girl's name is Trinity. Trinity and her mom tells their story. So I think that is a nice documentary to look at, to get an inside view, and maybe you go down a rabbit hole. But I think the more we know about this, the better. I do hope that you guys join us for the second episode when we go into detail about this cult leader, how he was formed, how he came to be, so that by the age of 15, he was already a notorious global cult leader. And so that we can understand the role we play and how we can better take care of our kids. All right. Thank you, Ruth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Okay.